Okay. Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. This Zoom presentation is being recorded. This brings back fond memories of old Zoom meetings. Anyway, um, uh, I guess if we're all good to go, Alice, we're good. So I think we'll call this meeting to order. And the first item would be the approval of the minutes of the public hearing on January 25th. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Doug.
If I'm a legal second.
Chairman, is Mark Rosen seated at the moment? Sorry, Mark, I believe as an
No,
alternate.
I was wondering,
So-
I think I'm unnecessary.
No, you are not ever unnecessary by any stretch.
Actually,
We have a motion from Doug.
do we have a second?
I see Ruth seconding.
Okay. Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes, say signify by saying aye. Gee,
Aye.
I don't hear anything.
Aye.
Aye.
Don't
Aye.
be shy. Don't be shy, folks.
You're right. Okay. Okay, we're gonna say that.
I abstain.
We're approving, actually.
Greg Marlowe is abstaining.
Okay, got it. Second item is the approval of the minutes of the special meeting on January 25th.
Couldn't find anybody. This guy.
I couldn't hear that. Could I have a motion, please, on the
I move
minutes?
to approve the minutes as presented.
Yeah, call.
Okay. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. The Ruth seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right. Okay. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Approved unanimously. Okay, moving on to new business. We have a proposed subdivision on BB Hill Road, map 4, lot 15-2. Janelle, you want to give us the overview on that? And also, I think we're going to have a presentation from the engineer, Keith Bobwell, and give us a little bit of the history too, Janelle, please.
Happy to. So just for some background, I hope that you all remember Keith Bodwell. He is representing the Coolidge property for the purposes of a subdivision. He did become before the Planning and Zoning Commission a few months back as a pre-application, and the suggestion of the Planning and Zoning Commission at the time, due to the steep slopes and the limited access for the proposal, was to go to the ZBA to ask for a variance in the number of driveways that can serve a single lot. The result of the ZBA meeting was a denial, so he's back before us with the original application, a site plan for the lots, which he will get into very preliminarily this evening. And then at this point, not to get too in the weeds with all the details of the discussion, because we will need to set any subdivision for public hearing. So Keith is back before us. Sorry for your lack of success before the Zoning Board of Appeals, and that we referred you to them and it was not successful, but we are more than willing to review your application pursuant to the current regulations, both zoning and subdivision. So it's been a long time since the commission has reviewed a subdivision. So subdivision regulations are online for all of our commission members. We'll be reviewing them between now and the public hearing. So I see Greg's hand.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just to follow our agenda, we want to make sure maybe before we go any deeper, we ask for any public comments.
Public comments, great.
Oh, correct. Any public comments? That's correct, yes.
Any members of the public care to speak to the Planning and Zoning Commission? Anyone?
Doesn't sound like it. Do you see anyone?
Going once, Going twice, I do not see any hands.
Okay.
I see
Uh,
nice smiles, no hands.
Okay, getting back to Keith Bogwell. Keith, do you want to give us a presentation again, please?
Yeah, I can do that. Okay, if I share my screen here with you guys.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
please let me make sure that, are you able to? If
No,
not,
you need to.
I'm
give
gonna
me-
make you a co-host. Yep, give me one quick second.
All right.
We won't grill you too hard this evening because we will send you to public hearing.
Right.
So just, you
Give you
know,
an overview and
yeah, just very preliminarily. Let me make sure. Here we go.
Don't be cliche, be the nice lawyer.
Keith, you should be able to.
all right. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. So this is the Coolidge property on BB Hill. It's across the street from Isabella Friedman farm area of BB Hill, which is right down in here. We're proposing, it's about 70 something acres, and we're proposing a 4-lot subdivision, 2 5-acre lots in front, a 27-acre, almost 28-acre rear lot, and an almost 35-acre rear lot. We're proposing it with 3 shared driveways, all coming in off the one location where the current access is, and 1 driveway for lot 1 on its own. At our public hearing for ZBA, we heard a lot of concern about drainage issues from the public, and we tried to take that into account. There was a couple of soil conservation swales that were put in as part of farming operation years ago. And there was some concern from the public about those dumping water off the end of those swales and causing ravines on other people's property. There's 2 of them on our parcel here. There are other ones on that hillside, but they're off of our property. So we're proposing some changes to the swales to turn them into more like rain gardens to try to get better infiltration of the water flowing off the hill, as well as proposing rain gardens for each of the houses to be sized once we have house sizes for them, as well as some rain gardens to pick up the drainage off the driveway coming down. I do have profiles, but the driveways show that they meet grade. I don't know if you guys want to see them tonight or wait till the public hearing, or I also sent them over to Janelle to send along to you guys. So
Let's wait till the public hearing, Keith.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Any questions I can answer for you right now?
One quick one, Keith. The rain gardens, do you design the rain gardens?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and just the sizing of them isn't, fully determined yet because the house sizes
Right.
could change and things like that. So they'd have to be sized correctly for the roof areas and things like that.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. I think that's a good solution.
Yeah. So the groundwater table out here is fairly high, so like an underground storage solution wouldn't really work. So the rain garden, I think, is our best way to handle the water
Sure.
out here.
Okay. Any
So-
other questions?
Yeah, Chairman, I do have a question. Mr. Bodwell, for the record, are there any wetlands present on the proposed properties?
There are no wetlands that I've seen any evidence of out there. And there is a pretty big drainage swale down through this finger on lot 4 here.
Mhm.
But there's no wetlands itself.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Janelle, I have a question.
Yes,
ahead.
Keith, so I heard you say during the ZBA hearing, and I apologize, I had not read the minutes
Yep.
or watched it, but that there was public comment on the drainage. I just
Yeah.
wanna, that's, I can't
It was-
imagine that's anything in their purview, so my
No,
question is this,
it
that had
wasn't.
nothing to do with their determination, right?
It was not. Their determination appeared to me to be fully that they didn't know whether they really had jurisdiction before you got, they said I could come back to them. If you guys approved it with the 3-in-1, then they would reconsider us putting that fourth driveway onto the.
Yes.
There seemed to be
So-
some confusion on the order of things.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, what you just said is if we approve it, in essence, what you're showing us tonight, because we're 3-in-1.
Yeah.
Then you go back and apply for the 4-in-1?
Right, put the fourth one into that. What I was proposing to ZBA was to connect from lot 2 here across the house on lot.
Yeah, I totally understand that, and I remember sending you to them for that question, but it seems, I don't know, I guess maybe.
I don't have a good answer for you on,
Yeah, and it's not your responsibility. I appreciate you answering my question, but to the commission here, we sort of have to, I think, discuss that, I think, prior to public hearing. I think we should kind of figure out the process. Janelle, maybe you already have it sort of
I'm-
figured out, but what I just heard is completely baffling to me.
Agreed. And there's only so much I can do with controlling or staffing a commission in which I don't staff. I did send them a very lengthy memo about the process because the P and Z had referred this particular application to them. I informed them of their authority, their powers and their duties, especially in reference to the zoning regulations and the Connecticut general statutes. And in reading of the minutes, it still seems apparent that some of that, so just the general discussion did go a bit farther afield than what the ZBA is tasked with discussing. So as much as I like to stay in my lane, I really tried to send them a memo, just informing them of their jurisdiction. And sadly, the outcome of this application is making Mr. Bodwell adhere to our current zoning standards, despite the fact that there are steep slopes and other environmental concerns. So at this juncture, for sake of time, expense, et cetera, the applicant has decided to come back before Planning and Zoning Commission, move forward with a subdivision proposal that is in compliance with both the zoning regulations and the subdivision regulations.
Okay,
So
so if
not-
I hear that
yeah, not-
correctly, Keith, then it doesn't sound like your client will probably go back to ZBA.
I don't know. I've got to discuss it with them
Mhm.
more.
Okay. I mean, is a low impact for, and that's why I keep bringing it up, like,
Yeah.
we're well aware of the lower impact to the surrounding area.
Right.
Than going up the steep grade, so, I don't know.
Yeah, and that's what I told CBA as well, so,
Yeah.
I'm not, I don't know I don't want to get in their lane either, but it just, I don't know. I think as our commission, if there's a way, we should try to find it.
Yeah,
That's all I have.
and Commissioner Marlowe, to your point, certainly before we set a public hearing and move forward with a public hearing and go through the whole rigmarole that involves the public hearing with a very specific subdivision site plan to make sure that we are headed in that direction rather than cost the time, the money, et cetera, involved with moving forward in one direction. I want to make sure that the client is moving in the direction, or the applicant is moving in the direction that they intend to move in, so that we don't spend a lot of time reviewing, discussing an application that isn't actually going to be what ends up happening. So certainly we will keep that in consideration, and I am in close contact with the applicant to make sure that they are moving forward in the way that the applicant wishes. So it's been a bit of a process, but we're communicating.
Okay, any other questions for Keith?
Just concerning the site plans, so is this a A2 survey that you've prepared for the commission that will go to the public hearing?
There was already an A2 survey of the property,
Yeah,
so taking the A2 and then added the subdivision. to it.
okay, and you'll bring not only the engineered plan that you'll be presenting for the subdivision, but also that A2 before the commission.
Yes, I will do that.
Great, and then, as far as, like, did you have a soil scientist investigate, or did you work with them to determine that there were no wetlands on the property?
We did not.
Okay,
I've walked the site and did not see anything.
perfect.
me that.
I will leave that, I will stay in my lane and I'll leave that to the Wetlands Commission.
Okay. If there's no other questions, I'd like to go ahead and set a date for the public hearing. Do we want to set it for the next, for the March meeting?
So
It
Fred,
seems-
I have a question for you.
Sure.
We haven't had a subdivision in, I don't really quite remember. I've ever
Been a
seen one in the time I've been on, but I feel like the public may have a better opportunity to see the plan, ask questions on the plan. Is it, would, I guess, to make it my rambling short, can we do a hybrid meeting for those that are still local? So that we can actually have the paper maps and the people can come up to the table and look at the paper and maps, and
That
I
would be
think
great.
the personal interaction, I think, might be better in this rare circumstance for our commission.
It's a good point. Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just for the record, Matt Mackey did join the meeting. I believe it was 6:42, and also for Alice's record keeping.
Okay.
Hi, Matt.
Janelle, correct me if I'm wrong, but with the hybrid, there has to be a quorum at the town hall. And
I don't believe so. There just needs to be some human that
There
is
doesn't.
manning the owl at the town hall so that it can be a hybrid meeting. So there
Mm.
doesn't have to be a quorum in person, but there does need to be someone physically available to be manning that machine.
Do we have anybody that's capable?
I
I've done
believe we do. We have a Mr. Commissioner Marlowe.
Greg, is that something you could undertake?
See, I can do the owl. Absolutely, I'm willing to do that. I think it's well worth the hybrid meeting, and
Oh.
I would suggest as well that somebody, one of the commissioners at the meeting live, chair it, just as we tried to chair off the owl to a hybrid meeting before it became very complicated. We had much more success doing it with a live person at town hall.
Great. And I do believe I'm available, whether it's remote or in person. However, it will facilitate the commission. And when we set forth our calendar for the year, we gave ourselves some leverage so that we can do hybrid, in person, and or on Zoom. So we are allowed to do one, the other, all of the above. So we're in the clear on that front.
Okay. Well, are there any other comments on that from the commission? I don't think it's a bad idea either. I think we generally, with something like subdivision, we'd have those plans available to the public at town hall. Regardless, I think that's definitely been the case in the past where we've done projects similar.
Yep, and we can even get these up on our website.
Okay.
Yeah, because Keith will provide them to us and has provided to them to us electronically.
Okay. Keith, are you good with that? If we have a live meeting at the town hall?
Yes,
But it'd be a hybrid, okay.
yeah, that's
Good.
better, I think, probably.
Yeah, okay. And actually, if you can just coordinate with Janelle in terms of the plans, having something available at town hall, as
Yep,
you know,
yep.
have your plans, etc. That'd
Yeah,
be
we'll do
good. So are we good for the March meeting prior
So
to
the-
the meeting?
there- I believe there's a motion on the floor that's setting a public hearing for the subdivision for a hybrid meeting on Thursday, March 28th at 6:30.
Okay. Okay, who made that motion?
I don't know if it was made, but I think
Oh, okay. Uh,
I think Commissioner Marlowe is working towards making
It's,
it.
w-
and he
okay,
wanted to Make sure it could be hybrid, but I don't want to speak for any
Yeah.
commission.
Greg, are you in the process
is-
of coming up with a motion?
That was my motion. She must have telepathically picked it up.
I was just speaking aloud for Alice, so Alice knew what was going to be in the
Okay.
minute.
Okay, so we need some wording, Greg.
So Greg, let me just ask about the timing on that because our regular meetings are supposed to start at 6:30. So are we gonna do the public hearing at 6:30 or before that?
I would like to do it at 6:30, just for the general public, give people enough
Yeah.
time to get home and get there.
Okay,
You know.
Sounds good.
Great,
Let's do it. We have the motion.
and make sure the motion includes the fact that Greg is responsible for the running of the owl.
Okay.
Greg, would you word that properly, Greg?
I'm responsible for the owl.
Okay, Alice, can you read us the
Okay.
motion?
yes, motion to set a date for the public hearing. I should probably call it BB Hill
The
Road
date,
subdivision.
Correct, yes.
I'm
Hold
seeing
on,
that on the
Alice,
agenda.
before you read it, Alice, I think we have to
Yeah.
make I have to go back. I think we have to make the special meeting starting at 6:15 or the public hearing at 6:15. So that our regular meeting at 6:30 or after the public hearing. That way it doesn't become a special meeting.
Okay, so 6:15. Okay.
Yes, I apologize. I should have thought of that before.
no, it's a good
Well,
point.
that's why I was asking about the 6:30 timing.
Mhm.
Because we changed the regular meeting time to 6:30. Okay, so anyway, motion by Marlo to set a date for for a public hearing for the BV Hill subdivision to be a hybrid meeting on March 28th, 6:15, and Greg Marlowe will run the owl at the town hall.
Okay, do we have a second on that motion?
I see Ruth's hand.
Okay,
Okay, we have a motion by Greg, a second by Ruth. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, approved unanimously. Okay, so,
Thank
Janelle,
you.
you'll
Keith.
coordinate that with
Yeah,
Keith.
thanks, Keith.
Thank you very much, guys.
We'll see you in March.
In March.
Yeah. Next item is the budget for P and Z for 24-25. Everybody should have the budget to date that we sent out. Does everybody have that?
Yes.
I can,
I'm hoping.
Chairman, I can share my screen if you want to, if everyone wants to look at it.
That would be easier for me.
Yeah. happy to.
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense, actually,
Yeah.
Janelle, 'cause
Can everyone see this? How is it?
Can you make it a little bit bigger?
a
Yeah,
little
let
bit
me,
bigger and drop it down. There you go.
so everyone can also make it bigger on their screen. I'd be happy to make it bigger. Everyone's screen will look a lot different, so I apologize if this works for you. Let me know.
This looks pretty good.
Okay, happy, and let me know if you want me to arrow. Happy to do it, because I see we all are seeing something different, so just let me know.
Okay. To begin, I think I read the charge from the selectman and the treasurer, but I'll just reiterate it. What the treasurer and the selectmen have asked us to do is they would like, and I'm going to just do this as a synopsis. They would like to propose a lean spending plan And we ask each of you to analyze every line item in your proposed spending plan and adjust them appropriately. Our goal is to have a budget that comes as close to a 0% increase as possible. And this can only occur if each of us eliminates any expenses that are not necessary. Our tradition has been to go line item by line item. So I would, if everybody's got this on their screen, I think we can start. The first item is zoning enforcement officer. Maybe we can come back to that after we've gone through everything else, because it seems to me that Janelle has been putting in a lot of time and a lot of additional work as the zoning enforcement officer. So I think we should look at that after we've gone through everything else and take a look at where we're actually going to end up. The secretary, that's pretty much, how are we doing with that, Alice?
Well, I'm just sitting here looking at it and I think that the numbers don't seem all that correct. And I say that, but I just don't know, even though I see that her plan is, or the printout is from February 6th.
Yeah.
I'm looking to see if okay, so for instance, on January 24th, I submitted a bill for $560. So
Yes.
I think if you look at that, like year-to-date activity,
Yeah.
but the budget runs from 7/1 to 6/30. So in other words, this was just for minutes from September 28th on. Okay, so if I go back, I can also tell you that in September, before the 28th meeting, I submitted a bill and that one was $480. So that was for 2 in June, 3 in July, and 1 in September. So right there is 560 plus 480, and I haven't even gotten, let me see. So what do we say, July 1st? Okay, so July 1st, these two were June. If you took off 160, so what is that, 320?
1040.
So 320 and 560. Well, I'm taking off the 2 Junes because the budget should be from 7/1, so I'm taking out the 2 Junes, right?
Yeah.
Or because I actually got paid, I didn't submit the bill till after September. I mean, maybe the truth of the matter is it should be included, the Junes.
Yeah, they should. So the fiscal year runs from July 1.
Right, but I didn't submit this until September 19th, but it did cover meeting minutes from June, 2 in June, 2 in July, 3 in July, and 1 in September. And then the one for 560, like I said. And so I must even have like a whole nother one, right? Depending on when I submitted it.
It doesn't seem like there's enough money showing year-to-date activity, Alice, even
Yeah,
though we should have been
that number might be
submitted
off.
in July. We'll just overlook that for the moment. If you take them out, it still seems like 1160 is not enough.
It definitely
Yeah.
doesn't.
It is.
We had a lot of, well, like I just told you, I saw 3 meetings just from that 1 month,
Yeah.
you know,
Not to
and then we
mention-
had, yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
not to mention, we've had a lot of longer meetings. We will be having more public hearings. This week has been sort of an anomaly of a lot of activity with inquiries about development. So if that's any sort of foresight into what we will be seeing, I would definitely put more towards work that you do, the invaluable work that you do.
I
I'm
think
just-
you're right, it's a lot of meetings. That's what I'm looking at.
Well, not
Yeah.
only that, Alice, and
Mm.
I'm looking this as a possibility, is when you get down to the bottom line under the 30, the open line for the plan of conservation and development.
Yeah.
I think his contract was 32 and change, something like that. We allowed for that extra 5, I think roughly, to take care of miscellaneous expenses that would be incurred as an auxiliary to the POCD. I'm just thinking, we did so many meetings with the POCD. I'm wondering if we could borrow against that, because I have not seen his final billing, but I think he was very close to that 32,000, 32,500.
Mhm.
I'm wondering how, if we can allocate some of those funds, because you had to deal with every one of those meetings, the POCD special meetings, all those different meetings. I mean, if there's some way to allocate that towards towards what's going to be necessary to complete the budget, or to complete your billings to the end of the year, the fiscal year. Greg, I'm going to ask you, how do you think the selectmen would look at that?
Yeah, I mean, I would put it on the treasurer, let her decide if she wants to overrun the line, at which point the first selectman would have to, if it's a certain percentage, has to present it to the Board of Finance, which I think may be a little cleaner to do it that way, but completely could understand your explanation. And I think that would be something for our first selectman to use, that it was, a lot of it was due to the POCD, extra work that was due this year. And even though it overruns that line, we have a lot of, it looks like a lot of unexpended funds in the open, in anticipation that we were going to overrun it.
I think we're somewhere around 5,000 that we
Yeah.
have. And by the way, my understanding was when we approved that, maybe somebody has a better memory of this, but it was for things like additional publication, additional
Publications, mailings,
mailings,
meetings,
research,
public meetings. Yep.
public meetings.
So
Yeah, Alice.
can I just make one little comment? So if you took our 11 monthly meetings, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe if we thought about it that way, that alone brings us to 880. And then if we counted on maybe say 5 more, so that's another 400. Maybe if we increase the line item to 1280, I mean, not a huge increase, but does, maybe 5 extras along with our normal regular 11. I mean, I don't know.
That makes sense. And I was thinking the same thing. I did take your
Okay.
1160 and I divided it backwards and came up with like 14 and a half meetings. And sometimes we only get half a job from you, but I figured.
Yeah, I know. But I still charge the full 80.
It's a steep rate. It's a steep rate.
No.
I think that's a good solution, Alice.
Okay.
Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's move along on that. The one thing we should sort of think about though is that 5,000 we have available. We should sort of figure out how we're going to utilize those funds. So let's keep that as on the burner here. Let's keep moving though. Clerical expenses. Gee, we're showing we still have $150 in there. It doesn't seem like we end up using that much, but I think we're supposed to keep all the line items that we have here ongoing. Same with postage. And what I think happens is some of this gets done as part of the town covers some of this out of the either the general fund or as an ongoing item. I think that's what's happened in the past. The bills come into the town clerk or the treasurer, and that's how it's generally looked at. So I think we should probably just keep those line items and leave them as they are, unless.
I just
And-
have one question for consideration. Because of the OCD was recently updated, there will
Yeah.
be a need to just print a few hard copies in a fine quality so that the
Yeah.
clerk has a nice copy, so that we can provide them for new members. Do we want to consider that a clerical expense? Does that fall under publication expenses? I'm not quite clear
I
where we
would-
should.
I
Yeah.
would put that during the, that line item, the 37.7 and expend it out of there. So
Is it
that would be
Correct.
our operational budget and tagged for what it's regularly used for.
Perfect, since that's an anomaly. It's like a,
That, and it
Outlier.
was specific for that. And actually, Janelle, I think that there should be more than a few POCD copies made. I mean, obviously, we want some at town hall, but it would be nice if they could be given to each commission, different commissions. So they
we'll get into that at a different moment, but we'll make sure that we put that in our open budget.
exactly, and
Yeah.
and that's where I see it. Maybe 10 or 15 of them. Okay, attorney.
Fred,
Yes.
on the let me just say on the clerical and postage, since we don't
Yeah.
seem to be using those, do you want to just adjust those to make up for the 120 difference that you're moving into the secretarial line item?
Smart.
So
Oh,
it looks like we're staying the same, but we've just sort of allocated slightly differently, but we're still keeping a clerical and a postage as a line item.
yeah, that's not a bad idea. Does that work, Greg, in terms of?
Yeah, you can do that. I don't think it's, it doesn't look like we do any, I don't remember ever honestly spending anything out of clerical expense. So I mean, if you want to lower that to 100 as a placeholder, that's typically we usually use 100 for a placeholder.
Yeah,
Okay.
So we can lower that to 100. I'll make that suggestion.
yeah. Okay,
So if the placeholder concept, I'm sorry, the placeholder concept is lost on me. If it's a line, because my understanding of the way that Falls Village budgets operate, you can't move from one line item to another. So keeping a placeholder that is no longer relevant, does it value anybody?
Well, it may be relevant if we somehow run into clerical expense. I mean, if the commission think it is, we can go 0 this year, and after 3 years of 0, it just goes away.
well,
Can
the other
anyone
thing,
clarify what a clerical expense is?
I think if Alice wanted to printer ink, I'm just making
Got it.
sure,
Oh,
I'm
that'd be
making
good.
up a scenario, but if there's an expense, something like that.
Got it. That
Or
makes
we
sense.
had to,
that
the
does make
board of
sense.
selectmen got tough and we had to pay for photocopies, 26 page or something.
Yeah, good point. When I spoke to Linda about that, when she was treasurer, she said, because we thought at one point about either consolidating or eliminating, she says, do not eliminate any line item. She said, you lose them, you never know when you're gonna need something there, like Greg was saying. So just to be clear, we are going to move to $100 on clerical. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Miscellaneous. I am not sure what we've been using miscellaneous for.
I think
But it's a good
this year with that 350, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it had something to do with 35 Railroad Street maybe, or the
Oh,
plan.
you know what?
I would
think you're right.
suggest leaving that at 1,000 and jumping ahead to attorney at 2,000, knowing we
Yeah.
have subdivision and some other potential
Correct.
zone work in town, which we know can become litigious.
Yes. I agree. I think the 2,000 has been a working number we've used in the past, and it's probably a good basis to work with. Any other thoughts on that?
Yes. Do you anticipate, who's paying for the firehouse? Is that from Board of Selectmen budget?
I'm
I
not,
mean,
I don't
Want to
understand
make sure
the question.
P and Z is not, right?
No.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't understand the question anyhow.
On the attorney line item, I want to make sure that the expenses that go along with the railroads, the 35,
Well, anything further, you mean, yes, select.
I want to make sure they're not coming out of the P and Z budget.
Correct.
Correct.
Thank
Mhm.
you.
And I think this happened at one of our previous meetings, but we all felt that Chuck Andrus should be our attorney to the P and Z. And I think, is that the understanding of the rest of the commission? That if we do have issues, we speak with Chuck?
I think he's wonderful.
I think he's terrific. He really helped us out with the 35 Railroad Street.
Just one
okay.
comment. I wasn't
Yeah.
on it and have dealt with him before and think he is great. I just want to make sure that everyone realizes his focus is on the planning as opposed to like real estate matters.
Got it.
Okay, just one
Yep.
little comment and that's all I need to say about it.
Okay.
And
Publication.
The other part with that is, I think if we went to that, we should run it by the Board of Selectmen, because in essence, it's a contract expending, even though it's our dedicated funds, it should get their approval to do so.
Okay.
My question
Uh,
to the commission
yeah, go
would
ahead.
also be if engaging Chuck required a retainer or anything, because sometimes that is the case with attorneys.
Yeah, I think he knows who we are. I think we'll be all right.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
Don't tell
In-
Alice, but I have her credit card number.
Oh, fantastic.
Hey, Greg, could you
Alice?
pass it? Greg, could
Alice?
you?
I hear
Yes.
Ruth.
Yeah, Alice,
Ruth.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, so I would like to put this in the record since I was the main liaison during the firehouse sale with him. His accessibility was so valuable to us, and that would be the same asset this time. You call him, you text him, you email him, you get an instant response, really.
Yes, and with an attorney, you are preaching to the choir. That is
Yeah.
a wonderful thing to have.
Yeah, so put that in the record, if you will.
That
Thank you.
he is awesome with communication and prompt responses. How's that, Ruth?
Perfect.
Okay, you got it. It's gonna be a notation in there.
Very good. Next item would be publication expenses, which we are using it, and I think that's probably a good number, unless anybody has any other thoughts. I mean,
I believe the year-to-date activity is higher than that, just given the number of public hearings we have had, higher than this 375 that everyone's looking at.
correct.
I mean, we
And
need to,
that's what I was just talking about, Janelle. I think it gets intermingled with some of the other publication
Yeah,
expenses at the town.
yeah,
but,
just between, I don't believe it was common practice that the town was publicizing notices of decision. So there, for every public hearing, there's going to be 2 public ads for the notice
Right.
and then a notice of decision. So it's 3 ads total. They're not cheap. They're usually at least 150 to 200 a pop, depending upon the word count. So 500 is very meager.
Wow, I guess you're right. Wow. Huh.
So we're
Uh,
60% through the year, right? February, well, almost 70, I guess. I mean, that's a tricky line, always has been a tricky line, because we don't, I mean,
You don't know.
the number is given to us by the treasurer, but showing $375, even though that doesn't even make sense.
That doesn't make
Mm.
sense. It doesn't make sense based on the number of notices that I've sent to the newspaper.
Hmm.
But between the POCD, just in the last month, that number does not make sense. With the
But do we
POCD,
get reimbursed by the other people, Janelle?
sorry, the applicant doesn't pay for that ad. It's a town responsibility.
Okay,
We
thank you.
haven't worked, yeah, no, it's a good question. We have not worked the public ad requirement into applicants' fees. That would
Okay.
be an ordinance in order to do so. It's a great suggestion because typically it could be the applicant's responsibility. So if that's one way if you want to consider future budgets, would be an ordinance change so that applicants are actually eating the costs of any public notice. 'Cause
The
there's-
When you,
the question I would have with that is, it's a legal obligation on behalf of the municipality. And if the applicant didn't pay for it, you know what I mean? It's almost like
Yeah, it's a
it
tricky one.
almost sticks you in a corner that I don't want to be in.
Agreed. It's a
Mhm.
tricky one. Sometimes application costs cover a little bit of that. So it's just, I don't,
Well, and that's something to keep in mind is we do collect fees for special use permits and whatnot, but they won't show up here. They go right to the general fund.
exactly.
but Janelle, you work on increasing our application fees to cover other certain expenses that, or was that just like newspaper publications that weren't decisions or something?
That's honestly for the newspaper publications. So
Okay.
public hearings twice and then the notice of decision being necessary once.
Okay.
So what did you say per publication cost was roughly?
So
500.
the recent public hearings, there were 2 public hearings, I believe, in December. That publication cost to run twice was 150, if I'm not mistaken. And then there was a notice of decision that followed that, which was 75.
So we're looking at 225 for two different.
And again, it's all
So we're
based on.
looking at over $100, call it $125 per application. So I mean, the 500 isn't completely out of whack
But
for-
then did
for-
we,
for
do
a
it
typical
twice?
year, but we don't know what a typical year could be.
It's, yeah, it's, I mean, we may have had an atypical year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cause you reran those public hearings in January since we didn't meet.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's double on that. So you
Yeah.
know that number's not right.
Correct. That's a good point.
I'll have that right, but I think we should leave
Hopefully
it at,
an outlier.
I would suggest we leave it at 500 and just keep an eye on it and see what next year brings, and then we can go back. Really, when we're doing this, we probably ought to do a 3-year spread backwards.
Smart. There's also a legislative session that's fighting the publications, so that's always something.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree with you, Greg. Let's leave it at the 500. And then moving on to the consultant, engineering, et cetera. I think that 20,000 is a good number. I think we should keep that there. It seems like it's working out. What's your sense, Janelle?
My understanding is that that covered our costs and we have taken on additional consulting engineering fees this year. So I feel comfortable with it.
Okay,
Right, I have a question.
yes.
How is this, is the new guy here, how's it paid out? Is this a contract? Is it, billable hour? How is that all individually?
What's that?
consultant
Who's the new
engineering
guy?
and whatnot?
Who are you talking about, Doug?
The consultant engineering, what is PL, by the way?
Planner.
Planner,
Planner.
thank you. So on that line item, my question was, budgeted for 20, we're about halfway there, which looks good. How is it paid out though? Is it a contract or is it, is it
Oh,
being billed
okay.
by the hour? How does that work?
it could work either way. For the most part, it's billed by the hour. When we've hired George Johansson from Allied in the past, he usually gives us a contract. But sometimes he's going to bill us by the hour. So basically, it happens both ways. It depends on what the scope of the project is that's we're using consulting for. We've been using Janelle quite a bit for her consulting on the planning end, because we basically have her as a zoning enforcement officer on the zoning end, but there's so many items on planning that we're working with that she has been very active on the consultant end, and she actually is a consultant as well.
Sure. Okay, I mean, going forward, since the POCD, I assume will be approved, hopefully in the town meeting. even with all the discussion prior to this about other line items, we will need to spend, I think, if we implement or start implementing some of those things. I wouldn't want to lose a dime out of the budget if at all possible, right? I mean, we can go to zero maybe, but I don't want to give
No.
up a dime, right?
Oh, absolutely not. No, they have couched the language in that, in the preface as saying, they would like to come as close to a 0%. And I think, I tend to agree with you. We don't want to go backwards. There may be some items, which is what we're going to try to review, that we may have to add additional cost. But in terms of that line item consultant, I think I would agree we keep that 20,000 there.
So let me ask you another question, if you don't mind. I know we're going back to it, but that first line, the zoning enforcement,
Yeah,
Janelle's been working very hard, obviously. I mean, we're about 75% through that. How do
Yeah.
we, you know, she's not done, right? We have 4 more months or so to go. Do we amend that? Where does that come from if we need to override or override?
Well, I think what we would probably do is look to her to bill us on the consulting line item, because we have 9,400 left there. And I don't think we're going to be doing too much more engineering that I can think of towards the end of the year. I think what we have to anticipate is there's going to be a fair amount of additional zoning enforcement. And that's a line item. The reason I wanted to come back to it is I think we've generally have been increasing it every year, but it still doesn't seem to cover every year that we, are sort of working with it. So with the additional responsibilities, with the additional state mandates, with the changes that we're going to be doing with the regulations, I think we need to consider that line item as an increase. Basically, I don't see any of the other line items really changing dramatically and staying the same essentially. And if we only go up, a percentage or so, I think that wouldn't be so bad. But any other thoughts on that?
Well, I went back, I looked into a budget worksheet that's being passed around. Our budget's coming up in May. And if you go back into 2021, 22, that line item was about 8,500. And it jumped to 20, which, I'm sure there were circumstances that's about a 60% increase.
Right.
So maybe if we're not in need of that, I don't know what those circumstances were. At one point, it went to 37. It was probably a one-time 17,000 payout for something. I don't know. But I'm not sure we need all of that there. So maybe to your point, is that something we move up to that first line item?
The 37, Doug, you're aware that that was the POCD and came out of our general fund.
The extra 17?
Yeah.
That was 2 years ago, Fred. We were, I think that's when maybe Janelle first came on, or maybe it was 3
right.
ago. And we
I
were
think you're
funds.
Sorry to interrupt, Chairman. I do see that member in Vincent Inconglios, he's entered at 7:26 p.m. And
okay.
for Alice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
I think you're right.
In my opinion, I think that between the lines of consultant and zoning enforcement officer, I think maybe under the umbrella of zoning enforcement officer, maybe there's some charges that could be put towards a consultant side. If we were to work with our consultant and CEO, I'm sure it's bifurcated, and I apologize, I haven't seen one of those submissions. But Janelle, I'm not holding it tightly to it, but does that sound like reasonable?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
So, we have a line item of zoning enforcement officer, but I think a lot of times you wear both hats. And I think
That's correct.
potentially it gets charged to one line when it really could be charged to the other or split.
I'm pretty cognizant every month to equally spend my time, so as far as ZEO, it's really based on applications, so that's gonna be a force beyond my control, who's applying for what, when, what sites do I need to go to, etc. Planning is based upon the meetings. There's been a lot of special meetings for the past 2 years, but I do my best with bifurcating the two and just making
So you
sure
kind
that
of, yeah, I think
working
you,
between
I
the
think you
two.
answered my question then, is that, the zoning enforcement officer, we just don't know. It depends what comes into the door. So it's not, and I apologize, I have seen the contracts, I just don't recall them. So it seems like, maybe the zoning enforcement officer can just go up the normal increase. I think last year we just went up with whatever we gave everybody else as far as a salary increase.
I think
Yeah,
it was 5%, wasn't it, Greg?
That
Right.
sounds right to me, yeah.
so typically what I do, just for full transparency for everyone to understand my accounting behind the consulting, so I pretty much look at the ZEO budget, which is fixed, and then work those hours that month, which I usually always exceed because it's at the level that it is at the moment. So I exceed those hours and then I work off of the planning hours. But all the while, I'm also differentiating between if it's a planning hour based upon the exercise, but I do monthly exceed what ZEO has as far as answering questions, meeting with people on applications, and just performing the role of the ZEO.
Mhm. And actually, Janelle gives us a very thorough breakdown, Greg. She breaks down the time, the hours, and also what's remaining on the budget line item. So we have every month, we have a very thorough idea of what her expenses are.
So it seems like then we should probably, since we're kind of on the consultant line, we were saying stay at 20, but maybe we ought to lower that some and put the balance in ZEO to more fully balance it out. So we're not, for transparency reasons, just so we're allotting each line item its real cost.
Good point.
That's okay. That's one option. We could put $2,000 into the 12,660 and go down to 18, or we could just take that 12 up to 14 maybe. I think we'd have a couple of options. I think we definitely have to increase the ZEO line item because it's just not working out here. Any thoughts on either option?
I would be a little nervous. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Stephen.
I would be a little nervous taking out too much out of the consultant engineering because we are trying to redo the regulations and we've just started doing the home business, and that money is gonna come out of there.
That's a whole different, that's a whole separate.
Oh, that's not part of the
That's a whole
consultant.
separate, that's a sunk contract, so that money's been allocated elsewhere.
Perfect. Sold. Great. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think what we need to determine is what do we want to add? We're staying almost consistently with everything else. Do we add like 1,500, 2,000 to the ZEO's line item? I'm throwing out numbers, but I'd like
Well,
to
then
get
I agree with Doug. Let's take out 2,000 out of the consulting and put that in the ZEO. And then we're staying the same and we're keeping our budgets close.
I already told you everything I know.
Are you additionally gonna factor in that 5% increase on the 12,660?
Oh, you know what? Why don't we factor that in?
So I'm getting that to come up to be like an extra $633.
Yep,
Okay. And what would that total out, Alice?
it's
The
13.
633 plus the 12,660. Yeah, 13,293. Sorry,
13.
Janelle.
No, it's okay. I've been doing the math for the past 10 minutes.
13,293.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sort of hesitant to take from the 20, but
I
that,
wouldn't take from the 20 to feed a standard
Right.
increase. Like I wouldn't
Yeah.
take from the 20 to feed that 5%. Just
right.
I'm sorry I was late, but just catching the last part of this conversation. Why do we have to stay the same? I would add,
I agree. I mean, I think we should add at least 5 and maybe 10%, and then stay the same with everything else, except we were going to bump for Alice. I think we were going to rework out of one of the other line items.
Yeah, we reduced the clerical by 50.
Yeah, we
Sorry.
got to give you a little more.
No, I know, but that was just like an attempt to make the increase, not so great. It was only $120 anyway, I think. So,
What
So
about this?
we talked about going up 2,000 on ZEO, minus 600 is 1,400. So, I mean, I think we ought to just raise it 1,500, let the 5% take care of the rest. And I still think we ought to take that 1,500 out of consultant engineers. We were asked to be close to zero, and that's, I
Yeah.
think, what I'm talking about the balance.
Okay, so run that by one more time. What do you see going to then the ZEO? Are you saying 2,000?
I would say 1,500 to the ZEO.
Yep,
And
gotcha.
take 1,500 out of the consultant, so lower down to 18,500.
So
Yeah.
14,160
160. Okay,
for the ZEO, and then 18,500 for the consulting engineer plan.
18,500. Okay.
We did quite a bit this year, and we're only at 53%, although I think we've proven we can't quite trust these numbers.
No, that's true.
But say they're off 20%, we're still at 70%. I don't know. I'm just speaking for myself, but I'm comfortable with that change.
Yeah, I don't think that's bad either. Any other thoughts?
I just feel that the consulting thing shouldn't be dropped so much because we've got the POCD getting into action, and to get some things done, we're going to need help.
But
Yeah,
this is for next year. This is
Next year.
So we still have
Bring it to life.
4 months worth of expense on this budget.
All right.
Commissioner Marlowe, do you mind repeating the number for ZEO?
I would increase it $1,500.
So
So,
14,160 now.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I was curious about the sum, 14,160.
Yes.
that's correct. Okay.
And then it's up to the Board of Selectmen, whatever if they want to increase it to 5% or whatever they do for raises. I think
Yeah.
that's normal in the past anyhow.
Mhm. Okay. Well, any other comments on Greg's approach here?
I think 15 is reasonable, and if you need to, you can still go back to the consultant line item and pull if you had to.
I do it monthly.
Prefer not to, but it's there.
Okay.
I agree with, I mean, we need to think ahead for sure. It's next year, but there's a lot of hopefully changes coming. We're looking at home business. If that should take off, it's going to involve some expense on our end.
No question.
The parking plan downtown, if that takes off, expenses on our end.
Yep.
I think keep it where it is, maybe boost it to 5%, somebody had mentioned. See what happens, keep it at 0, I don't know, but we're gonna need every dime. And I think some of it does fall into the zoning enforcement officer, of course, so I have no problem bumping it to 15, let's say.
Mhm.
And then falling back to the 20 if we have to, or the 18,500.
What if we round it up to 19? keeps us a little bit more.
Round up.
I'm concerned about the consulting too, to be honest with you. I think that we're gonna be drawing on that. There's no question.
Well, it's good compromise. 1,000, you're saying, up to the CEO?
No, we do 1,500 to the CEO. And then we do, I see, because we were taking 1,500 out
Yes.
of the consult. I was thinking of
Correct.
just rounding it off to 19, but.
Oh.
Well, we could, that'd be a $500 increase.
Yeah,
With,
Okay.
I have no problem with that, going to 19 on that. I was just kind of putting in numbers to get around where we were, but I'm completely fine with that idea.
Me
Yeah.
too.
yeah. Why don't we go with that?
Am I crazy? Cause when I add these numbers up and I'm only getting a $70 increase. If we did the ZEO to 14,160, secretary to 1280, clerical at 100, postage at 100, miscellaneous at 1,000, attorney at 2,000, publication at 500, consultant at 18,500, and mileage at 200.
Yes.
I'm getting 37,840, which is only $70 increase. I don't know how that's.
Right, that because we balanced, because there should be 500 plus, so it should be $600. Oh, what did you have under consultant line, Alice?
18,500.
Oh, well, we're talking about going to 19, that's why.
Going to 19.
Okay,
And
because
So it should be 600 and whatever
very
dollars.
minimal.
That'd be
increase.
570.
Okay.
Yeah,
Alice, does that cover the clerical, the
It,
secretary?
it takes the secretary to 1280. It takes the
Yeah.
ZEO line item to 14,160. The
Yeah.
clerical down to 100. The
Mhm.
rest remain the same except for the consulting engineering at 18,500. So maybe that's where we're gonna talk about 500 more. But based on all of that, it only looks like we're $70 off of the 37,770. Is anybody else running that math to see that? So I don't think, Greg, I think your concern about like any sort of increase. If we bump even the 18,500 to the 9, we're really only looking at like $570.
yeah, which is not much for a very important
Oh,
commission in terms of the work that's ahead.
Right? Are you guys, I just want to make sure.
Yeah,
Triple.
that sounds right,
I think
Alice.
it's because we're not adding, we're just moving.
Yeah, exactly.
And what does that do for that 5% we were talking about? So by
That's-
increasing it to
that's-
14,160, does that take care of it? Or we're
No,
getting more?
that's on the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance. That's not our gig.
Yeah,
Oh,
But
okay,
in-
so
What
this,
what we were saying, Alice, is if, assuming they do 5%, 4%, whatever,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
a portion, that's why we only went up 1,500 instead of 2,000.
Okay.
let's see how that works out. I
Yeah,
don't
so we
think
said that would be 633. That's what we were talking about. So if, even if we move the 1,500, we're actually talking 14,160 plus 633.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah,
But you're saying,
That-
Greg, we don't show it that way? We only show the
No,
14,160?
because it's our presentation to them. They can go up, increase whatever they want. That's on them, not on us. So it'll raise our budget ultimately, but that's on the Board of Selectmen for their presentation to the Board of Finance.
Gotcha.
We
Okay.
don't put it in and then they put it in on top of it. It just
Okay,
put
okay.
it in what
We
what-
don't add the 633. We just stick with the way we reallocated the money.
correct.
Okay.
that sounds reasonable. I mean,
It depends on the commission's wants, wishes, desires, demands. Same,
I
like
still
status
feel like
quo
we're too low.
work, with status quo work amount, below, above, I mean,
yeah, no, I think that's a reasonable amount to, the 570 or whatever it was additional. That's very reasonable for our commission, because there's been a lot of work put in this year, and I anticipate there'll be a lot of work next year. And I wish there was some way we could anticipate a little bit more because we always have these problems and we used to be able to move within different line items, but that's no longer available to us. So,
So why do we have to be so reasonable?
I think that number, that increase is less than 2%.
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
It's between 1% and
Well-
2%, actually. Or 2 or 3.
what happens if we go higher and then?
Well, the
And we,
Board of, yeah, go ahead, Vince.
if we go higher and you have a surplus, or are they gonna come back and tell us that we're spending too much money over $500,000?
That's the part
there's-
you missed.
Yeah.
I know, I'm sorry, I got the traffic in the city.
What happens, Vince, if there's a surplus, it goes into the general fund. So it's sort of incumbent upon us to utilize the line items the best we can. And I don't think a 2% is unreasonable here. And worst case is the Board of Finance or the Board of Selectmen will make an adjustment or will suggest an adjustment. I think in the past, we've gone and argued in front of the Board of Finance our position, and they've always accommodated us for the most part. We have a good rationale for additional costs. We pretty much hold the budget every year.
Okay.
Or close to it. So right now, Alice, we have the numbers, correct? That we've been discussing?
Yes, I believe so. And again, it's the 570. So
Yeah.
14,160, 1280,
Yeah,
100, 100, 1,000, 2,000, 500, 19,000, 200. So that should be 38,240.
38,240. Okay.
38,240, and our current budget is 37,770. Is that right? 470 or 570?
770.
37,770.
Okay, is
Minus 38.
yeah, what's the difference?
Looks like it's 470. Did I count the extra 100? I keep forgetting because there's two 100s.
Oh, that's right.
14.
470 is right.
It
Yeah, I
is,
think
Thank you, Doug.
is everybody okay with that those projections?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
if that's the case, can I get a motion to approve this budget
So moved.
as based on the numbers that Alice just gave us? Okay, can I get a second, please?
I'm sorry, who made the motion? I missed
It
it.
was,
Great.
Commissioner
Greg.
Mar-
Greg made a motion to approve budget as discussed. I don't know.
yeah, as discussed.
And
I believe-
I'll outline it. I'll say as follows, as discussed, as follows.
Right,
And I'll run the numbers right in the minutes.
And I have the numbers as well, Alice, if you,
I got it. I'm good. I think I'm good here, hon.
okay,
Okay,
okay, can I second, please?
I thought I saw Ruth.
Yeah,
Ruth?
I seconded it.
Okay,
you.
okay, Ruth. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye, opposed? Okay, it's approved unanimously. Next step, Janelle, this should probably be presented to the Board of Selectmen. I think they get it next. Is that correct? Greg, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Sooner,
they
I mean,
put a
Dave, Mr. Barger's on the line here, so I think they're meeting tomorrow morning, so he'll, I'm sure, with his sharp memory, have it pretty close for their.
Have all the numbers.
I
Okay,
recorded them here.
all right, good, Dave. Yeah, because there was a caveat on here. I don't know if they were telling us that this was something they were holding over us, but they said if we did not approve this by the 22nd, last year's budget would be the budget that they would be using. So anyway,
Fair enough.
okay, we're moving forward, Dave. We got a budget for you. Are we the first ones in?
No,
No.
No.
But
What a
we're the
surprise.
best.
but you're close enough.
Okay.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Okay. Moving on. The home business regulations, the draft proposal, I think Janelle sent that to everybody. There's quite a bit.
3 times maybe.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I'm not sure we can, make any decisions tonight. I think that, Janelle, why don't you just give us the, an overview synopsis here, and then we need to decide how we're going to proceed on this. And we may want to consider a subcommittee to make a recommendation. That's one thing that may be a possibility, but there's quite a bit to consider here is if everybody's read this. So Janelle, go ahead and just give us your sense here.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So this draft, I believe, was first circulated, maybe back in September. And we have been busy with our meetings. As you've seen, we've had a lot of various business. So for the best interest of the commission, it sounds like at this time, it might be good to have a subcommittee that will work on regulation review moving forward, and then bring presentations before the Greater Commission at a time that they're amendment ready, so that the commission can have a greater discussion. It really depends on how hands-on the commission, some commissions work where they want to, the full group wants to discuss, work through the regulations, and other commissions work differently, where they just want a subcommittee that's really focused on the regulation review. So at this juncture, just given the fact that I believe this topic has been on many, many agendas, and by the time that we do get to it, we tend to have expended a lot of energy and time discussing other things. So the curiosity at this point is, do we break off into a subcommittee that's working on our regulations? And I do see Commissioner Marlowe's hand.
Go ahead.
Fred, historically, actually a lot of people on here tonight. Historically, that was Tom Scott, Greg Badou did their subcommittee work, brought it to the full board for approval. I've read through this, I guess back in September and again, even today, and there is so much decision to be made here.
Yeah.
I mean, from definitions, I mean, it's everybody's read it, I'm assuming. So it's almost 4 pages of decision.
Or do we have special meetings? That's another question.
Well, that was going to be my question. So if we do it as a full commission, we definitely need a special meeting just for this, in my opinion. Should be rather soon, because this has been on the burner for far too long. Or we charge a subcommittee which could report in for the next meeting. I would suggest. But I don't know. I guess I'm just asking how people would like to handle it. What other commissioners think?
Janelle, from your standpoint, I mean, you gave us a lot of information, which is great. I know you went through different towns and gave us some examples of what they do too. But what do you see is the top priority for Falls Village? Is it just rewriting to update, get us on, par with the statutes and whatnot from the state? Or, I mean, what do you see as most important that we need to get done?
So we've run through the regulation priorities, and Doug, I do believe it was 2 years back now. So at that time, home business came to the forefront just because of that recent application that we all saw. So I think they go twofold. I think one is the state updates that we don't really have much leverage or say on. Those we should always be working on. We recently all witnessed doing that family childcare facility update so that we could get back to the first selectman and to the board of selectmen that we were in compliance with that act. So I think twofold. I think doing our priorities as far as what works best for the town of Falls Village. Home business has recently come up because of our lack of specification within the regulations. And then there'll be ongoing work constantly with bringing us up to par with Connecticut general statutes. So, and I know that doesn't really answer your question, but I want to say it's both. So it's Falls Village specific topics and then always the ongoing work of getting our regulations up to statutory compliance. And in my experience, I have seen that the word of the Greater Commission is essentially the decision making, so it's much more effective, but it is a timing thing. So making sure that we devote enough time to our meetings so that we're working as a planning commission that's amending the regulations, and if the need be for special meetings so that everyone is on board with the changes. I do see that being important work. And I really don't see it beneficial when it's a unilateral decision coming from a very small group of individuals that just has the time to devote. I get a little bit, as your planner and your consultant, uncomfortable with that. I really want regulations to be blessed by the Greater Commission and be discussed at large. I think it's important that all the commissioners also understand the important local land use regulation changes, from statutory obligations that we have no control over to just the nuances of what works better for Falls Village citizens versus just updates that we're doing to modernize regulations. So it's timely work, it's thoughtful work, but I definitely would recommend the Greater Commission spend some time on topics rather than subcommittees.
Yeah, I tend, Stephen, or can I? Well, I'll speak for a minute.
Go ahead.
I really think that I agree with what Janelle's saying. I think we should have special meetings, and if we have to have several special meetings, but put a time limit on them with a strict agenda that Janelle could maybe guide us through, so we know what are the priorities to deal with in these regulations so we don't let it go. If we leave it till the next meeting and the next meeting, I don't think we're going to get it done for another 6 months. But if we have the special meetings, we maybe can tackle it, but we may need more than one special meeting.
Janelle, have any of the other towns that you worked with had workshop sessions with the commission to meet and just start going through some of these items? Because I see a couple of things happening here. We determined that we were going to prioritize some of these items, and that right now what you have mostly prioritized is this home business regulations. I'm wondering if—
Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that was not a priority that I set. That was a priority that the commission set after
Correct.
the wood example in the town of Falls Village. So it's not a priority that I am setting. It's coming from the
Okay.
from the citizens.
Let me rephrase that we asked you to prioritize, which you have done. Okay.
Yeah.
Secondly, I'm wondering if we can look at our existing, which you have in this document, our existing regulations, and look at how we can modify or add to them as a first step.
So that has been tackled by the first memorandum. I think the discussion at hand is just moving forward how the commission is going to begin to draw their attention to these sorts of memorandums and make decisions on them that can be thoughtful and just a good discussion of the group that might not be taking place the same night that we're also digging into the budget and trying
Right.
not to have a meeting that runs longer than 2 hours.
Correct. Yeah.
So Janelle, I think another really good reason to have this be the whole commission is we're having a new member come on, and this is a great opportunity for her to get involved in these new regulations or redos of regulations. So I would think it would be great to have her involved in this.
Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
everyone, it's you as a commission adjudicate your regulations. So it's really important that you understand what they say, you understand what you want them to say, and that you are informing the citizenry of the town of Falls Village what the regulations will say. We have other time obligations. We have to report to the COG. We have to report our changes. So it's very time intensive work that is always publicized, but definitely needs to be publicized. And I think the greater, the better when it comes to really having thoughtful discussion about where to go with the regulations. And I think the question came up from Doug earlier that I didn't fully answer. The way I'm handling this in other towns, we have workshop meetings to work on regulations, and it's a consistent thing, and it's just, we do it every month, and I am at the meeting and we're discussing regulation. We're not discussing commission business. So zoning, you are a shared commission, you're planning and zoning commission. When you're working to change your rules, you're legislating as the planning commission. When you're reviewing an application, you're working as the zoning commission. So to understand that you're doing both roles, there's going to be times that we will be meeting just solely as the planning commission to work through these legislative decisions. And that requires a very different thinking cap and very different thinking parameters around your decision-making requirements. So it can sometimes be helpful to isolate meetings so that you're acting as one commission and not both at the same time. Because in our small towns, we are planning and zoning commissions. We're not one or the other.
I like your idea of a workshop because it's just specific to the regulations, and we can develop an agenda as well
Yeah.
for
I mean,
that workshop.
Yeah, I'll be frank, I don't do my best work at 8 PM at night after discussing the budget. And I also don't think that we get the most thoughtful input from commissioners and or the public if we are leaving these discussions like an hour into a meeting. I think just devoting time very specifically to these specific topics, and then we work through them. So not that this becomes a lingering discussion that never ends, but we work through where what the regulations say, where we're going with the regulations, and then we have a public hearing. And I see Commissioner Marlowe's hand.
Fred, I suggest, I'm just gonna run a date, March 7th, 6:30 PM for a special meeting to work on home-based business. I'd also,
Okay.
I think we're, perhaps have a record here and have all 3 selectmen on the Zoom. And I think that, it's really important to get them, and Dave, I'll try to get it to you, to spread to the board of Janelle's work, because this is heavy in planning and heavy on economic development, the way that I look at it. So, you know, if you guys had any input, I think it would be great to include your board.
I'd be happy to forward the memo to the selectmen as well.
If you could, that'd be good.
Yeah, and I'm Commissioner Marlowe, just for the record, what date did you propose? I just want to make sure
March 7th.
that I have availability.
What?
I just picked a Thursday a couple weeks out. I'm not, it's just a starting point.
It looks
No, I
clear.
think that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. What time, Greg?
6:30.
6:30. I think that's makes a lot of sense. And Janelle, if we can develop an agenda for that meeting too, Because I think that the things that you pointed out, how we should proceed. So we have a definite critical path that we can work with.
And just to orient everyone, because everyone has joined this board at various times and missed various points of the conversation, but just to inform everyone at the table, the budget to do this regulation review has been counted for. So that's been set aside. That this isn't just adding to the CEO budget or to that planning consulting budget that we looked at earlier this morning, but a little bit of background that's been set aside. So as we embark on this work, it's not something that's coming out of like this year-to-date account activity and or what's to come July 1 and onward. Just so
That's
you
correct.
all
Yeah.
are aware. Yeah.
Very good. Is everybody on board with that March 7th, 6:30?
Yes.
Sounds great.
Any objections? Okay, that's
Let
good.
me-
So
hold on, just
basically,
give me- Chairman, I just want to think one thing through my schedule. That is good for me. Yes, we're good.
okay.
Perfect. Thank
Okay,
you.
good. Very good. I like the workshop format. I think a lot gets done and focusing on one thing makes the most sense.
When you-
Next time,
One question, when you have a workshop,
yes.
does the public give input?
Of course.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just want to know.
No, well, public meetings, so I would just, as far as workshop meetings go, it isn't like a dialogue with the public. It's a agenda meeting with public comment at the beginning.
Okay.
And for workshop meetings, I suggest at the end, just so that there is some closure to everything that's been discussed.
Got it.
Mhm.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I'll happily put out an agenda for that. I'm just curious as to whether that will be an in-person meeting.
I think it was a Zoom.
On the,
Well, this is a whole
Can
new.
we do a
type of
hybrid?
meeting.
You can do both, can't we? Yeah.
I'm fine with hybrid.
Okay.
Just because I'll be leading most of the discussion, as I can just focus on leading the discussion and not running the owl, that would be ideal.
I'll run the owl.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
I'll be in
Uh,
for that meeting.
Okay, moving on. Under old business, the Village Center parking plan. Greg, are we still tabling that or is there any update?
No, yeah, there is an update. So I went and visited First Selectman Barger in his office this week to discuss where that stands and something that came up in the fall time, and it sounds like he was still on board. So I suggest that that subcommittee still set a date and meet again. And where we left off, just so everybody's on the same page, is we presented to the public. We had some feedback, but we hadn't made any modifications since that point. So I think as a subcommittee, the same one that we had, meet, go over it, and just kind of get back up to speed and get the new select board up to speed with us and go forward with that.
Okay, that sounds good.
Who will be participating in that?
I believe it was Stephen, myself, Doug, and
me.
Vincent.
Vince.
Oh, the enthusiastic Vincent.
Okay,
Members.
so we'll look forward to hearing from you again, Greg, after that meeting. Item B.
Yes, just on that, Fred, that's my take on it, but commission as a whole, does anybody have a problem with moving forward in this subcommittee work?
No, I think that's excellent that we're moving forward on that. I think George did a nice job there.
Should we set a date?
How about we do it after the meeting, because I have to scrounge around and find a date that can work for that. I feel pressed right now to set that date.
Okay.
I thought I saw Commissioner Koshland's hand.
Stephen?
Same question. I just wanted to ask if we were making a meeting or not. So that's fine. We can do it after. Thank you.
Good.
I'll send it around, or you guys send me your availability to whatever, however.
Okay, good.
And just for the record, and
motion.
just for FOI compliance and website stuff, who is in charge of that subcommittee with getting agendas online? Does
Mhm.
anyone need it?
Mhm.
Okay, if you ever need any
Oh.
assistance, always here, let me know.
Okay.
But
Same.
happy to know somebody's doing it.
Okay, if we're all set with the Village Center Parking Subcommittee, let's move on to the.
Alice, you're it.
Well, hon,
I said you're it.
Okay, moving on to item B under old business, Subcommittee on P and Z membership, P and Z guidelines. My understanding, there's been one meeting so far. Can you update us, Stephen, on that and where we stand?
Yeah, well, we met, we're gonna have another meeting on Monday, March 4th. We've come up with some guidelines that we figured, something like to attend a certain number of meetings. We're trying to decide if 9 or 8 out of the 11 is needed. The hybrid is gonna make it a lot easier for people to attend, so I think that that's gonna be a great thing moving forward. I wrote down in the minutes, basically everything that we discussed. And it was basically more just what we felt we are looking for, the criteria such as, how do we onboard them? When do they want to bring them to a meeting? And we're still looking to, create a packet to, be able to give to new members. And we've got some land use stuff and the Ziska book and some other things that we put together as well.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good, pretty productive. Any questions for Stephen?
We did talk about the packet being originally a hard packet, but we said we'd make it an online packet, if I remember correctly, Stephen.
Yeah, which makes sense. Or
Yes.
both.
he's muted.
Who's muted?
Steve,
Oh, sorry. It is available digitally on the website, so it is already available and accessible in a digital format, but we could make flash drives or whatever you decide, but an email with those links would be very easy to do.
Okay.
Okay, moving on, land use training guidelines. Janelle, you want to take that?
Yeah, so just a quick update. So in accordance with Public Act 23-173, we are required as of March 1st of 2024, so fast approaching, to report to our municipal's legislative body, that would be our Board of Selectmen, if our commission is in compliance with the required training. So I am happy to facilitate getting that communication over to our Board of Selectmen. I just need written sworn statements from each commissioner. Please just email me directly if you've kept up with the training, if you have any sort of substantive evidence that can show that you have, that's all helpful. It's been an honor system. We trust the honor system. If you have questions about what training is required, there's mandatory training for all P&Z commissioners. I'm happy to assist. There's a lot of good online resources, but by March 1, we are required by law to report that to our Board of Selectmen. So I will poll the group, and please just proactively email me and let me know if you have complied. No shame on you if you have not, but if you do have questions as to how to comply quickly, certainly be in touch. I'm happy to help. I just want to make sure that we are reporting to the Board of Selectmen affirmative that we are complying with training. So training opportunities, there is one coming up. I just want to say that at the end of the month on Leap Day, the 29th, the COG is holding a commissioner training. That's at 7 p.m. I believe that was circulated in an email. I'll send it out again. But please just inform me so that I can refer to our first selectman that we are in compliance. And if you're not, just let me know. Again, all just for everyone's benefit. If there's a specific topic that you really want to learn more about, happy to be a resource. But we will be officially reporting over to our Board of Selectmen as of next month.
Yeah, send that out, Janelle. The,
Happy to.
yeah,
Yep, and I'll send, it's actually a 5-pager. It comes from the Connecticut Office of Policy and Management. It's a pretty nice succinct overview of the training guidelines, and it also gives a lot of examples, optional training, required training. And if there's one particular topic that anyone feels really strongly about, let me know. I think the more that we can get involved with running our own trainings that are really meaningful, specific to Falls Village, meaningful either for the region or otherwise, it'll benefit everyone a lot further.
okay. Next item is the CEO report. Janelle, you want to
So
just?
I'll go ahead and share my screen. Yep, I'm
Yeah.
gonna go ahead and just pull it up on my screen. This was, give me 1 second. I have the wrong document up. So this was shared via email. This will also be attached to our minutes. Let me just grab it. And actually this week, there's been a lot of uptick in email inquiries regarding a lot of prospective developments. So I expect this report to be just as robust next month. You'll see I'm at about 1 or 2 permits a month this month in ADU and also a single car garage. A lot of zoning inquiries around Camp Isabella Freeman, Dublin Road, just meeting with property owners. A lot of inquiries from property owners talking about possible lot development, possible lot modifications. Zoning complaints that 75 Music Mountain is still kind of hanging out. I have heard that the activity has died down in the winter. So that's positive, but we will need to formally address it just because I have never communicated with the property owner. And also I've brought to the attention, and just to reiterate, we do have a zoning complaint form so that everyone that does have a complaint or hears from their neighbors about any particular concern, by all means, the formal complaint form has been developed just so we can standardize how complaints get written and how we follow up on them. And then we're all very aware miscellaneous topics. It's just items to return to. The BB Hills subdivision is now before us. The ZBA approvals I'm keeping on here so that we can keep tabs on things that will be headed our way. And then I'm also adding to the reports our public ads. And this is relevant to this evening, just so we can kind of look at how many ads we're putting out. Some months we have 0, some months like this month, we have many. So that'll just be something important piece of the ongoing work that we do to keep us compliant. So if anyone has questions, please let me know.
Any questions for Janelle?
Janelle, could you just clarify? I think it's probably just a typo, but under miscellaneous, the ZBA approved the variance of a rear yard, maybe?
I'm sorry. What number? Which one are you on? I don't think.
Miscellaneous number 2.
Oh yeah, rear. It should actually say of a rear yard setback. So they varied the rear yard setback at 64 Route 7 North. Thank you for that.
Does anybody know what property that is? I'm just curious.
Yes, so it is the formal Lakeville Journal property.
So they approved it? Is that this week?
That was a
the
past
other night?
meeting. That was actually a past meeting. So it was a month or 2 back.
I thought that they denied it.
No, this is a different property. So BB Hill and 64 Route 7 North.
Yeah, but I thought the Lakeville Journal building, I thought they denied that variance.
I heard a different story from our applicant.
Okay.
Yeah, but we should, I went digging for ZBA minutes, and I think I would like follow up on this one now that we're unclear of what the outcome of that meeting was.
Okay, any other questions for Janelle? Okay. Okay, Janelle, thank you. The item 6, public comments and official correspondence. Are there any public comments?
Yeah, I have one.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Laura Werntz. This is regarding the money that you mentioned was set aside for the regulations workshops. I'm just curious how much money that is and when it was allocated and by whom and where it is held. And I have one more question after this.
Janelle, you want to take that? It's a contract, but Janelle can explain it to you.
I mean, happy to. I'm sort of a third-party consultant here, so I'd prefer not to, because I believe that you were at those budget hearings, Chairman. Because
Okay.
of the way that I don't quite understand the way that worked. I just understand my contract, but I don't understand the background of that.
Okay, well, essentially what it is a contract to do the revisions to the P and Z regulations. And I think it was about 2 years ago, Janelle?
I think it could have been even 3.
Yeah.
3 years ago. And the contract price is for $18,000. And we have pretty much postponed a lot of the work on that due to the activity that has been ongoing with P&Z. But what we're trying to do now is pick up on a number of the issues that we need to be revised for the regulations, and also the state mandate changes to the regulations, or new regulations. So there's a number of issues that are ongoing, and that's why we're going to be having this workshop on March 7th.
Yeah, but just to clarify, the regulation rewrite was designated over 3 years ago, and the workshops are just subsequent work that the commission has
Correct.
decided on. That wasn't a conversation as far as the original agreement.
That's correct, yes. Lord, was there,
Yeah.
you had another
I have
question?
one more question. Does an attorney review these revised regulations at any point before they go to a town meeting for approval?
I would
Um,
recommend that the commission do send them to the attorney that they're looking to retain, which would be Chuck Anders.
Yeah,
And the
Thank-
COG also reviews, is that correct, Janelle?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
yeah,
Any text amendment goes to them, goes to public hearing, goes to public hearing. Yep.
that's
Thank
correct.
you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Fred,
Or comments?
I have
Yes.
2 comments, I guess. I was looking up something. I was trying to, actually, I couldn't find my paper zoning regs. I didn't have them in my truck with me. So I went to go online and I noticed they were not on the zoning part of the website. Are you okay? Is the commission okay to ask the Board of Selectmen to have those put back on there? I'm not sure how they got removed.
Yes, so Greg, I'm glad you brought this up, not to cut anyone off. I was hunting for them today as well. They're in a very weird spot on the P&Z website. They're actually in the questions, the FAQs. They're not on that sidebar. And I have the same suggestion because there's a lot of other things on that sidebar that don't need to be used as regularly as the P&Z regulations.
Right. So as long as everybody's okay, I'll ask for that to be, I'll ask Denise to ask the selectmen.
And it might be helpful to make sure that those subdivision regulations are front and center as well.
No question, that would be helpful.
And then the other thing I had, was a conversation I had with the person in town, and I've noticed the same thing is some public, and I also had this discussion with, First Selectman Barger, is, I think on municipal buildings, and I just want to kind of mention this to tag it for future planning discussion. But dark sky compliant lighting, external lighting, it's been around time, but I'm seeing a couple now public owned buildings that I do not believe are even remotely close to meeting dark sky compliancy. And I think that especially any municipal buildings should be mandated for compliance, but I'd like to put that somewhere in the future on our to-do list.
So to jump in, the town of Morris just updated their regulations to include dark sky. I was their consultant serving for them, and I believe they are the first in Litchfield County. So they've just updated the regulations, dark sky compliance for outdoor illumination. We got very in the weeds on lumens. It's riveting information, but just went through it with them and it was very beneficial.
They
So
beat me.
Would
They
you
beat
call
you to it. They beat you to it.
I was asking, would you call that a best practice then, and we should just follow it?
I would,
I
oh,
would-
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I'm a little humbled to refer to my work as best practice, but we'll see how it goes in Morris, and I'll let you know.
I did a lot of in the past, actually with the town of North Canaan on Main Street reconstruction project, going back well over a decade. And it's, there's a lot out there. So I suggest everybody just kind of Google it, and maybe we could get a copy of Morris's plan so we don't have to reinvent the wheel, and maybe just think about putting it into practice.
I may know where to find that for you.
Excellent.
Good idea, Greg. Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's becoming more and more important. Any other comments? Okay, item 7, other business to come before the commission. Is there any other business? I have one item. Is there any other items that anybody wants to bring up? No. This is brought to my attention that there may be some confusion regarding the P&Z email addresses, and planning and zoning leads one to believe they work in the field and or for the town in an official capacity. Use of the term commissioner and something specific to Falls Village is recommended. In other words, if it could say planning and zoning commissioner Marlowe or whatever, because I think the concern is that it's being represented as a staff or in an official capacity for the P&Z. So some feedback on that would be appreciated, but it does make some sense. Janelle, what are your thoughts?
Now that you do bring it up, I think I absolutely understand that as far as like professionalism goes. I do like mention of the term commissioner. I think it can be misconstrued that one works in the planning and zoning capacity when one volunteers on the commission. So if there, and as far as these emails go, I think something specific to Falls Village is helpful, just because, again, things can get misconstrued, because my professional email for the town of Falls Village is planning and zoning at fallsvillagecanaan.org. It might be helpful to have it be like in reference to your Falls Village Commissioner role. I think it should be uniform. I think this needs to be a conversation amongst the commissioners, what you're comfortable with. I think it's a good point that you bring up, Chairman, by misconstruing a certain professionalism that one that's volunteering on the commission may or may not have, and just making sure that it's very much specific to Falls Village, but consistent across the group, so that it's easily understood and easily passed along. But that's really
Okay.
for all of you as the important volunteers that do this important work.
Mhm.
But certainly, yeah, certainly the confusion between being a planning professional and being serving on the commission, I think it's an important distinction to make, especially as far as communication goes.
Mhm. Any other thoughts on this from commissioners?
I had
Well,
a comment. Is it
yeah.
important that it says planning and zoning, or can it be FVPNZ?
I think it just needs to be consistent amongst the group. So if it means something to you as a group and it's something you all agree upon, I think that brings meaning to if it's FVPNZ or if it's FVPZC. It just has to be significant to the group. I see Matt's hand.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
Go
not to, but, I'm just a little confused because I thought we discussed this during either the last meeting or the one before. And we had come to a planning and zoning dot last name at Gmail, because we, that's sort of the option.
Yeah.
I'm failing to see why that doesn't work, I guess. Because I think 4 or 5 of us have already created those,
A lot of
so
you.
that's all very uniform. Sorry, Greg, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why I followed suit as well, is that we as a commission talked about it in a meeting and followed suit. I'm not personally concerned with somebody being confused that we're planning professionals and that it still Falls Village at the end of the day. And San Francisco wants to call us for our 2 cents. We help them.
They're calling. They're calling.
And I guess to simplify, is this like an actual thing that we can't have that, or is it just sort of?
No one's
Right.
coming for the copyright.
It was, let me put it this way, it was brought to my attention that does create some confusion. And I was bringing it to commission's attention so that we could address it. I mean, if the general consensus is here that we can live with this, then so be it. I mean, there's 5 people that I think have made the adjustment to this point. But I think Janelle's point is well taken as well, that it would be traditionally a staff representation, or I think it's generally staff, correct, Janelle, or a representative of the commission.
I mean, if someone's sending you a permit approval question, by all means forward it my way. I'm sure it happens in your personal email.
Right.
I was gonna say,
Good
isn't this
point.
just for interaction between all the commissioners in case your emails are asked to be presented? I mean,
Yeah,
I don't really think people should be reaching out to Doug or Mark or whoever. They all should end up with Janelle.
Alice, it's a super
That's
good.
exactly right.
Yeah, it's a really good point. It brings us back to the standard operating procedures where just send it along to the official staff email, planning@zoning@fallsvillagecanaan.org, and we'll be happy to discuss. The impetus for the individualized emails, and forgive me if I send you guys the wrong email as we make this transition. But my understanding is the impetus was just FOI and legal concerns around using your personal email, mixing the boundaries of you as a commissioner and you as a personal citizen.
Right.
That's correct.
So whatever you guys want, have at it. Just bear with me as I adjust sending you your new emails, and as you all establish them, if anyone is in charge can just let me know. I can shift my listserv so that it just gets to everyone's new email.
Okay. Okay, I guess then we're leaving on status quo. Is there anything else for the commission to review or discuss?
Move.
Greg, you want to make a? Did I hear you?
What did I hear? I didn't hear it.
I
Right.
move to adjourn.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Hey, we met the deadline, it looks like, Janelle.
Yeah, you guys have a great night.
Hey, Greg,
Yes.
Good night,
Greg,
guys.
are you still on?
I'm
Thank
on.
you, Janelle.
Greg,
Thanks,
how about
guys.
1 o'clock?